Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith. Welcome to the Grow Tent, everybody. You have found the best one channel on YouTube, man. The place where we simplify the approach for you so everyone can learn how to grow. We make it so simple, even I can understand. So I'm going to listen and learn right now.
Woo! What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Grow Tent. We got a fantastic episode for you today. So today we're going to be talking about plastic pots and fabric pots, whether if you're choosing one or the other, if it's costing you yield, or we're going to talk about all the pros and cons. Well, not all of them, I'll probably forget one or two, but we're going to talk about the major points on why the plastic pots are good or why the fabric pots are good, and then kind of the downfalls of both and which one you should be picking for your style of growing. All right, but first, as always, everybody's favorite part is the intro. That's coming up. We got to pay the bills around here, especially since the channel's been demonetized and we no longer get ad revenue or have channel members because of dangerous content or harmful content that we were making about a plant that's never hurt anybody in the history of it doing it. All right, first of all, guys, if you on that note, if you haven't joined our Patreon yet, you should join our Patreon because it gives you a direct link to me, GT. I answer those questions at least once a day. And we do video chats just like we're having right now, only you're on the other end, not me. I see you. And we get to go over your plants in real time. And if you join any of the VIP tiers, that stuff's included. All right, guys. What else we got going on? Mars Hydro still has a 13% off sale. You guys know they sponsor the channel. They're the main sponsor of the channel. And we actually do get a kickback off of those sales. So much appreciated. And 13% off your entire order right now. You can follow the links in the video description below. We also got a merch store. We don't have a ton of stuff left. You can see I got some of the merch on right now. We got this awesome tie-dye collection. There's not very much of it left though. There's very sporadic sizes left. You guys went crazy with that stuff. We got a ton of fire tent slaps left though. So if you wanted to get some of them, make sure you get one pretty quick. Guys, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, watch the full video. It helps out a ton. And this week right now is your last week if you want to get in on the Grow contest. And if you do want to get on that contest, the entry for it is you either buy 2 tent slaps or a t-shirt if there's any left in your size. And that gets you entry into the contest with all the cool prizes. And if you haven't watched that video, you should go check it out. That was probably towards the end of last month it came out, but you should check that out. All right, guys, let's get today started. Let's go. Woo! Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Grow Tent again. All right, guys, so today we're going to dive right into it. So today we're going to be talking about the positives, the pros and the cons, if you will, of growing in fabric versus growing in plastic pots. Some of the good points, some of the bad points, and just things maybe you didn't think about, and the advantages you can have growing in each. So first things first, we're going to talk about root growth in the 2 different pots. So we've got plastic on one hand, we've got fabric on the other. Is our 2 main pots that we're talking about today, because I get a ton of questions in my email of, well, what about this one? Should I grow, is this one better than this one? So today we're going to go over the pluses and minuses. Fix my stuff here. Man, this shirt looks good on camera. These were some cool shirts. All right, so the first one we're going to talk about is root growth. Is there a big advantage or disadvantage to either of these pots for root growth? Yes and no. So root growth in the fabric pot, you will get faster root growth in a fabric pot. Because when the fabric pots actually air prune the root. So as soon as, like if this is the edge of the pot, as soon as the root grows, they will grow into it and try to grow through it. And as soon as they hit the air on the other side, that part of the root on the outside dies, and then it sends the growth hormone back up the root shaft. Just like when we top a plant, you can bottom the plant, and the fabric pots will air prune or bottom your roots constantly, 24/7. As the roots grow out and hit it, they die, and then it sends the growth hormone back up, and then it branches out just like the top of the plant. Because remember, these plants are mirrors of themselves. So whatever the top does, the bottom will also do it. So if you bottom a root, it'll send the growth hormone back up it, and then the roots will grow out. Just like when you top a plant, it's the growth hormone gets redistributed down the branch, and then the plant grows out. So the same effect happens with a fabric pot. With a plastic pot, when the root grows to the side, it doesn't die, it just hits the side and then starts spinning around. That's why if you've ever transplanted in a fabric pot, you don't see roots. Like all you see is dirt, but it's held together really nicely, but you don't get those giant swirls of roots around the outside. Like whenever you transplant a plastic pot, you get all these huge, beautiful looking white swirled roots. That's because of the way it acts. They just hit the side and they curve, and then they grow around the outside like that. Well, with the air pots, they grow, hit it, it dies, and then the rest of the roots start to grow out too. So the advantage in this one, it's 1 point for the fabric pots. It's a pretty big point, but it is 1 point for the fabric pots in that sense. Bring this up just a touch. Sorry, we're adjusting camera angles there. Yeah, it's a little bit better. So 1 point will go to the fabric pots for root growth. Now, that's not saying that, oh, well, GT says that only you know, the fabric pots work. No. I mean, the root growth is better in the fabric, but the plastic pots will still do just fine. All right, so next we're going to talk about transplanting. Which one is, you know, transplanting in fabric pots versus transplanting in plastic pots. The plastic pots, hands down, winner, 1 point plastic pots, because it's way easier to transplant in a plastic pot. To go from plastic pot to plastic pot, everything about it is easier. One, they hold their shape just fine. If you guys have transplanted in fabric before, you know it's floppy. They come all folded up. You got to open them up, stretch them out, put some dirt in the bottom, trying to get them to hold their shape. Put the pot in there. The sides are always falling in while you're trying to do it. Then you're throwing in dirt, trying to shape it back out into a circle. And then whenever you're pulling out of a fabric pot, you got to run your hands around the edges, around the bottom, or you can just cut them off and peel them off. It's a bigger pain in the butt transplanting out of a fabric. And then, I mean, with a plastic pot, you just squeeze the edges a few times, pull up on the plant stalk, the whole thing just pops right out, sits right there. Plug it into the next one. For transplanting, plastic pot wins this with ease. Of course, you can do both. It's just one is way messier and way harder than the other. I mean, not way harder, but it is, comparatively speaking, it is harder. What else we got for watering? Okay, so this is a great one. There's a couple really big advantages and disadvantages when it comes to fabric pots versus plastic pots. Watering in plastic pots is 1,000 times easier than watering in fabric pots. When fabric pots, especially whenever you're letting them dry out correctly, the soil becomes very hydrophobic and the water will just run through, and when you think you actually have watered till true runoff, the water's just coming out the sides, it's not making it to the bottom. It's a big pain in the butt. So watering in plastic is way, way easier. Whenever you're a beginner though, sometimes watering in fabric pots can be better for you because a lot of beginners have a tendency to overwater. The fabric pots do tend to dry out a day to 2 days earlier than the plastic pots because they breathe, whereas the plastic pot is just a solid piece of plastic, so it holds the water retention longer. So when you're starting out, growing in fabric pots can kind of lend you a hand because the soil will dry out faster, which means if you have a tendency to overwater, which everyone does, then the fabric pot can help you out there because it doesn't hold the water as long as the plastic pot will. If we want to talk about top watering versus bottom watering, or butt chugging as it's called. If you're watering in plastic pots or fabric pots, it does not matter. I have watered and fed where I just watered into the drip trays. You've seen me do it in the past on those old videos where I couldn't get to the back of the tent. So I would just water into the drip trays, let it soak it all up. There was 0% difference whether I fed from the top or rather like the plants in the front. I would top feed. The plants that were in the back, I would bottom feed or butt chug, let it just soak up nutrients and all. It'll go right through that fabric. So there was 0 difference in the outcome in the size, quality, yield, terpene profile, zero difference whether I fed from the top or the bottom in plastic or fabric. In plastic, they have those chunks cut out of the bottom. It soaks it right up out of there. And then in the fabric, it just 360 degree, sucks it up right through there. So there was 0% difference, and whether I was using plastic or fabric. So nobody gets a point for that one. So right now need to be taken to tally. We got fabric with 1 point, for root growth. Let's see, and then we got plastic over here with 1 point for transplanting. Watering, I'm gonna have to give it the ease of it to plastic, but if you're new, the fabric one is probably the one to go with. Time between waterings, we've talked a little bit about it. The plastic ones will hold the water longer because they're not made of fabric, and like the fans and stuff blowing on them don't dry them out nearly as quickly. So plastic's gonna get another point. Let's see. We talked about runoff, soak up. Whenever we're talking about bottom or top feeding, it doesn't really matter. They both do it extremely well, so they can each get a point for that one. Next we're going to talk about reusability. Can you reuse the fabric pots? Yes, of course. Are they a pain in the butt to clean and get all the crap out of them? Absolutely. It's a nightmare. Not a nightmare. It's not nearly as easy with the plastic. The plastic ones, I literally just take outside, spray them out with a hose for 30 seconds, and then we're done. The plastic ones last forever. Forever and ever and ever and ever. You can buy one set of plastics and they last forever. The fabrics, on the other hand, especially if you're cutting them or taking them apart or washing them, they break down. They do not last nearly as long as the fabric pots. So plastic is definitely going to take the win in that category for reusability, and then cleanup is right around there in the exact same spot. So if you ask what I prefer to grow in, whenever I would have started out originally, or if you're starting out, I would say fabrics are a really, really good way to go, because if you can master growing in fabric pots, and then if you ever switch over to plastics, I mean, it's like it cuts the workload in half, which is, I mean, it's not a ton. We're talking, you know, we're going over minute details here, but it doesn't take, it's not nearly as bad whenever you go from fabric, which isn't that bad to begin with, but compared to plastic, plastic's way easier. If you ask me what I prefer to grow in now, I would much rather grow in plastic pots. They're easy to clean, super easy to transplant. The watering lasts longer in between days, which means I have to do less work, which anytime I can do less work, well, that's what I'm going to go for. Simplicity as always. But will you get, so in final, will one pot cause you to get bigger yields than the other? No. While you may get some better root growth in the fabric pots, when it comes down to the end of the day, I have never noticed a single ounce of difference between fabric or plastic. I've never noticed a difference in how fast the plants grew, anything like that. Even with the better root growth, how they spread out in the fabric pots. If you only have plastic, you're going to be just fine. If you only have fabric, you're going to be just fine. When it comes down to it, if I have the plastic pots available, I'll use plastic pots. If I have fabric pots available, that's what I'll use. It makes zero bit of difference. So stop stressing out about whether you need plastic or fabric or anything like that. They both grow just fine. The nice part is with the fabric pots is you can fold them up and put them away, and they take up way less room than plastic pots that do not fold up. So you end up with stacks of these giant pots sitting all around. With fabric pots, I've got a little shelving system, and I can just slide the different sizes back into the sizes I go if I'm not cutting them up. All right, I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of the week. We're almost to the weekend. I'll see you guys next time. GT, out.